Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And I'm always interviewing entrepreneurs, thought leaders, influencers, changing the world, and bringing them onto the show. So today I have Karl Schnitzer, and he dubs himself as an infinite banking expert, and he's a realtor, investor, entrepreneur. Today is going to be talking about family legacy planning, private banking, investing. It's going to be a great show. One piece of advice is information is not advice. It's for educational purposes only. There's no endorsement, and results aren't vetted. So please do your due diligence prior to commencing. And I'm happy to welcome Karl on the show. Welcome.
Hey, Christopher, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming onto the show. And a lot of finances, financial literacy is really important. And tell us how you got started, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I'll give you kind of my high level overview of my background. So I started this whole journey when I was a cop. I used to be a police officer here in Philadelphia, which is where I'm based out of. When I was a cop, the district that I was assigned to, all around me was construction. I mean, you couldn't turn the corner without seeing people flipping houses and, new construction. And I kind of got a real estate bug from that. And I first dove down the real estate wormhole of buying rental properties and buying fix and flips. I kind of dove full force into, real estate knowledge. When I was still a cop, I was investing in real estate. I had some flips going on. I started buying rental properties, and that kind of all led into what I'm doing now, which I'm no longer with the police department. I left to pursue real estate and the infinite banking stuff that I do full time. Real estate investing led into real estate sales, where I got my real estate license. I built up a team of realtors here in Philadelphia, and then that kind of led into the investing part of that, led into me discovering, and I was actually a client of the owner of my firm I was a client of the owner of my firm for many years before I actually started working there, and had a book of business of my own clients.
Yeah, interesting. So we'll get right into the meat of the story. So, essentially, when I've studied the most wealthy people, it's usually, in the past, it was, it's either a combination of business, it's either through equities or through real estate. So, and that's how people build their wealth. I'm sure the audience out there is very familiar with real estate and how it's the advantages of that. For example, with real estate, there's so many different ways to make money. Tell us, looks like you went different ways through sales, through brokerage. Tell us more about the different ways.
Sure. So, within real estate, there's many different routes, you could call it. There's long-term rental investing, there's short-term rentals, there's fix and flips, there's wholesaling, there's building real estate teams. That's an investment of itself, of just, a sales team. There's all kinds of different ways inside of real estate. Now, each one obviously has pros and cons. I personally, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners that are physicians, would like more tax benefits. So owning real estate long-term would have more tax benefits than a lot of the other routes. That's kind of where I found my niche was in rental properties, and I built up a portfolio of several dozen rentals, and I've since sold the majority of them off, and I'm just passively investing into different funds and different syndications now, just because it was too time consuming for me, which, that probably goes on to something for your listeners. Every deal has different people. There could be somebody with, a lot of money and no time, or there could be people with a lot of time and no money. And when you can kind of mix those two parties, you can create a really good deal and a good partnership, because, there's a yin and a yang, one person's weaknesses or another person's strengths. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners and community, would relate to that in the sense, I would imagine there's a lot of income and not a lot of time to go out. You got to tour 30 properties just to buy one.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast the game's changed, and it's faster, bigger money. I'm not, again, this is not advice. This is, but it's interesting. You the smarter you are, and it's about working smarter and not working harder. So, in the past it was like you had to be a landlord, but then now they have like private equity syndication. It's amazing how you can create businesses from these different ideas. There's so many different niches within the industry.
Yeah. I like something you said too before of, the families and the people that you study, you see a lot of real estate. And so we at my firm that I work with, Producers Wealth, we work with a lot of family offices. So when a lot of families hit, a certain threshold of net worth, they like to establish a full family office, which is essentially just a board of directors that work exclusively for the family, all different kind of planning and investment strategy. We see a lot of balance sheets of a lot of wealthy people, and it's cool looking at our clients and what they invest in, because a lot of our clients are way further than me with investing, and I get to see kind of like an inside scoop of here's what this family or this person has done to build wealth, and here's what they're currently doing. And we have a partner that we work with who he's worked in the family office space for 20 years, and it's always interesting having a conversation with him that when he has sat down with these families, because he worked for a firm that actually built family offices, you see a lot of real estate and a lot of business. You see some stock funds, mutual funds, all of that stuff, but the heaviest allocation is real estate, and then private equity and businesses, and then we see a lot of life insurance too, because that's the industry that we're in.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a fascinating discussion. This talk wouldn't be complete without talking about interest rates, the economy, the real estate market. What are you seeing there? What are your thoughts? Again, not advice, but
Right. So I don't have a crystal ball, and I only say that because there's experts, from a real estate standpoint, there's experts that say, hey, real estate's crashing. And I can look at that and I understand their points, and I say, hey, they make a really good argument, like it could come down. And then you see the other experts that have the equal credibility. They're both, economists with, Ivy League degrees, and they say, hey, real estate's not tanking, and here's why. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a really good point too. And because I get this question all the time from clients, as a realtor and people, and I don't know. And it's kind of, I can understand both points. My personal opinion, what I believe is that a lot of the population and a lot of investors are losing faith in our banking system. They're also losing faith in Wall Street. So if people are losing faith in those two places where a lot of wealth is stored, where will people store their wealth? Wealth never dies. It just exchanges hands. And where will they start to look at is, in my opinion, hard assets like real estate, something they can see and physically touch that, everyone needs food, water, shelter. So real estate's always going to have value to it. Our banking and monetary system, people argue has no value, and it really doesn't, other than perceived value. And, with Wall Street too, people are losing faith in that. And it answers, which this actually is a good kind of segue into life insurance too, that we do, of where do you keep wealth and where do you keep money that's safe and that you can trust. And that's where, we at our firm, our clients like to keep a lot of capital inside specifically designed life insurance accounts. Most people don't even understand you get a account with a life insurance contract that your money can grow and compound tax-free.
Yeah. And it's one of those vehicles, especially insurance, where the rich, they have a different mindset. And I was talking to one of my clients, and they're like, they're ultra wealthy. They know the chance of death is 100%, just when. And so they buy these insurance contracts with the payout, and then they basically can grow their wealth, and also has tax advantage. Yeah.
So within the life insurance world, everyone thinks life insurance death benefit as if that's the only benefit to a life insurance contract. There's many living benefits as well that you can take advantage of while you're alive. And one of the living benefits is a cash value account. And it's just an account like you would log on to any other savings account. And the cool part about a cash value account is it grows tax-free. So this, could be a good bucket for physicians that are in a high tax bracket. Here's a bucket of capital that can grow tax-free, and you still have full access and control over it. And what I mean by that is you can use the funds while they're in there, and essentially you can create your money to work for you in two different places at once. So let's take an example. Say that $100,000 in this cash value account that's going to grow and compound tax free, and there's a guarantee on it. Right now in the insurance world, you see between 2 to 4% guarantee, plus you get a dividend. Again, that's tax free too. The idea behind it is that you can collateralize these accounts to go make an investment, which will allow your money to work in two places at once. So if you have $100,000 in this cash value account, you could then borrow, 50, 60, 70, even $100,000 if you wanted, and go make an investment in let's say real estate, while your 100 that was in the cash value account continues to grow. So you're in essence creating, your money to work in two places simultaneously. So, obviously there is a cost to that. There is an interest rate you have to pay on that money. However, we're creating spreads to where, ideally that investment that you're investing in will have a higher return than the cost of interest.
Yeah, it's basically what you're talking about is private wealth, private banking. And so, a lot of people, they're wealthy, but they're not at the level of like where you talk about like family legacy planning, private banking, infinite banking. We touched a little bit on like insurance. Tell us around this area. A lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, so insurance has been around for over 200 years. This strategy, the wealthiest family, if you look into some of the wealthiest families on earth, this is essentially what they've done. Banks themselves, they keep their tier one capital in life insurance contracts because they understand the game, they understand the safety of it. When you say that people aren't at that level, there really is no level. If you're saving money, it's just a matter of where you're saving money at. Rather than keeping it in, savings account through a financial institution, you can keep savings in another type of account. We would recommend at our firm, once you're saving at least $10,000 a year is when you should, consider this. If you're not at that saving of $10,000 per year, or 10, 15, even some of our clients, they're saving 50% of their income. And then it solves the problem. Where do you keep that? If you don't have faith in the bank or Wall Street, where do you keep that capital? And that's where this, is really useful for a lot of people. When it comes to the legacy, so obviously it's life insurance and there is a death benefit. Death benefit is a tax-free event. There is no tax on death benefit proceeds. So the way that we structure a lot of our clients' accounts is to have that death benefit go to a trust. That trust is then instructed to fund the life insurance accounts of any child born into that family. So when you look at, people call this the Rockefeller method too, of just series of trusts and life insurance. When you look at a big cycle, there's premiums go into a life insurance account. That life insurance account has a death benefit. That death benefit goes to a trust. That trust pays the next generation's premiums. They have a death benefit, goes back to the trust, and it's just one big cycle that's always going to grow and have uninterrupted compound growth, because since there's a guarantee, these accounts never suffer a loss. Suffering an investment loss is one of the big three wealth destroyers.
Yeah, this is basically you're printing money. It's what's called the infinite banking. And it's also interesting because when you talk about private wealth, people, instead of they have like savings and all of that, but then they also have, like, for example, gold, silver, art, jewelry, and then real estate as well. And then I'm talking to a lot of people and they're starting to buy Bitcoin as well. So that's kind of another asset that they're looking into. Of course, it's extremely volatile, but are you seeing anything of that nature?
Yeah, we are. I'm definitely not the expert in the crypto space, and I do see a lot of clients with crypto on their back. So go ahead. I am seeing crypto on balance sheets of clients, and what I'm really seeing is that it's an amount they're willing to lose. It's not, nobody's putting their life savings on crypto, or at least, I personally wouldn't, and I would never recommend that. But the amount that we're seeing, as an allocation of an entire portfolio is very small, and it's an amount that they're willing to lose. So whether that's, a couple $1,000s for somebody or hundreds of thousands of dollars for somebody, it still is a very minuscule part of an entire portfolio. I think crypto, depending on the crypto asset, whether it be, an NFT, a blockchain, or a store of value like Bitcoin, some of it is just perceived value where it's only worth what people are willing to pay.
Mhm.
Whereas, something like Ethereum, I can see an actual use for it, or even NFTs, I can see a certain use for it. So I think I would be more inclined to invest in those types of things versus something with perceived value.
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's a whole it's basically, real estate, back in, back the 60s, 70s, back then, institutions and these family offices were looking at real estate to better their returns because the fees from mutual funds and the equities weren't as good, so they were looking for other things. And it's interesting to see this new asset class. Of course, it's wrought with frauds and scams, volatility, speculation, all of that. So again, this is not advice, we're just discussing. Fantastic conversation. And it's really interesting, like how the wealthy think they really take custody of their assets. They don't put it into, they only put things that, where they can store things, temporarily, but ultimately they self-custody, and they control their assets and their wealth and where it goes, delving into the mindsets of the ultra wealthy. So
yeah, the common thread I see there, and you just mentioned it too, is control. We see all of our clients, the assets that they choose and the types of accounts they choose, they have full control over. This is that's one of the biggest issues I have with a 401k or qualified retirement plans, is that there is no control. You're investing into another fund, and even like, with a 401k, your partner is the IRS, and unfortunately they have control equity in that agreement.
yeah. And then yeah, I love that this idea. So how do people contact you, follow you, check out your social media and reach out to you?
Sure. So I'll leave you with, links to everything. My website, where I have a good, explanation of this in further detail. It's schedule, and that's Karl with a K, schedule. With Facebook, I'm active on Facebook and Instagram. Facebook is just my name. Instagram is Schnitz93. It's my nickname here. And our website for the firm is Producers.
Yeah. And for all the listeners out there, let's thank Karl for coming onto the show, really delving into the mindsets, talking about private infinite banking, real estate investing, and be sure to check him out. He's on Facebook, Instagram, as well as you go to Schedule with Karl for further explanation with visuals. And with that, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Thanks, Christopher. This was fun.